Have you ever walked alone in the woods and felt a shiver down your spine? Picture a lone hiker, brave or foolhardy, venturing into an isolated forest. The birdsong and rustling leaves are his only companions, until the strange noises begin. Whispers, almost inaudible, rustle through the underbrush. The wind seems to carry distant cries, and the forest symphony fades into an eerie silence. With each step, he senses the temperature dropping, a chill setting in that's deeper than any winter's cold. He wraps his coat tighter, but the cold seeps in, a stark contrast to the midsummer day outside the forest's veil. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he sees it. An apparition, a figure cloaked in white, drifting between the trees. He rubs his eyes, but it's not a trick of the light. It's there, watching him, before it vanishes as suddenly as it appeared. But the real horror began when he returned home. They say home is where the heart is, but what if your home is possessed by something not of this world? Picture a family, brimming with excitement, moving into a beautiful old house, unaware of the chilling journey that lay ahead. Immediately, they were greeted with ghostly apparitions. Transparent figures with a gaze that could pierce the bravest of souls roamed the hallways. Strange happenings followed suit. Objects moved on their own, defying the laws of physics. A cup here, a chair there, all seemingly with a mind of their own. The family stood witness to this inexplicable phenomenon, their hearts pounding, their minds racing. Then came the chilling messages, scrawled on the walls, in a script that seemed to be from a bygone era. The family woke up to these eerie messages, their blood running cold with fear. The terror, however, was only beginning. It escalated when they discovered the house's dark past, a past steeped in mystery and horror. A lonely road, a late-night ride, and a hitchhiker that's nowhere to be found. This is the tale of a good-hearted motorist who, on a chilly, moonlit night, noticed a figure on the side of the road, a hitchhiker cold and alone. The motorist, moved by the stranger's plight, offered him a ride. As they drove, the hitchhiker remained silent, eyes fixated on the road. Suddenly, the driver felt a chill run down his spine, and as he turned to the passenger seat, he found it empty. No sign of the hitchhiker. The car doors had never opened, the seatbelt unbuckled, yet the passenger had vanished as if swallowed by the night. Confusion gave way to fear as the motorist realized he was alone in the car, yet not alone on the road. The Phantom Hitchhiker, a spectral presence, had left an indelible mark on his journey. But the most chilling part of the story was still to come. It was supposed to be a fun sleepover, but it turned into a night of terror. Imagine this. A group of carefree teenagers, giddy with the thrill of the night, decide to conduct a seance during a sleepover. They gather around, hands connected, hearts pounding, the flickering candlelight casting eerie shadows on their faces. Unbeknownst to them, they're about to invite an unwelcome guest into their midst. As the seance progresses, the air grows heavy, electric with tension. The room becomes colder, their breaths visible in the moonlit room. Suddenly, a gust of wind extinguishes the candle, plunging them into darkness. A deafening silence follows. Then a chilling whisper fills the room, the voice of an angry spirit making its presence known. The teenagers are petrified, caught in the grip of absolute terror. But the real scare was not what they saw that night, but what happened the next day. The spirit had not left with the sunrise. It had only just begun. Children are known for their vivid imaginations, but what if their imaginary friend isn't so imaginary? This brings us to our fifth tale, the chilling child. Picture a little girl. Let's call her Lucy. Lucy was a bright, cheerful child, always bubbling with stories of her imaginary friend, a friend she named Mr. Whispers. At first, it all seemed innocent, the usual child's play. But then, peculiar things started happening around the house. Objects would mysteriously move, doors would slam shut, and unsettling laughter echoed through the corridors at night. The family tried to brush it off, attributing the strange occurrences to the creaky old house. However, as the incidents escalated, they couldn't ignore it any longer. They soon realized that Lucy's imaginary friend might not be so imaginary after all. The innocent playtime had taken a sinister turn. Lucy's imaginary friend, Mr. Whispers, was a malicious spirit, causing chaos and fear. But what happened next was something no one could have predicted. Urban legends are just stories, right? Not for the residents of this small town. Nestled in the heartland, the community was plagued by a tale passed down through generations. A tale of a shadowy figure said to lurk in the town's darkest corners, haunting the dreams of its people. It was dismissed as a mere folktale, a boogeyman story to keep children in check. But as the years rolled by, strange occurrences began to unfold. Whispers of eerie sightings, unexplained disappearances, and chilling encounters painted a picture too real to ignore. The townsfolk were no longer dealing with a myth. The legend had come to life, terrorizing the once peaceful town. The realization was a chilling one. Fear gripped the town, not merely of the shadowy figure that had stepped out of legend and into reality, but of the horrifying truth that the tale was based on. The terror was not just born of imagination, it had a sinister origin. But the real horror lay not in the legend itself, but in its horrifying origin. Footsteps in the night can be terrifying, especially when you're home alone. Our next tale revolves around a woman who found herself in such a predicament. It was an ordinary night, a night just like any other. The clock had struck midnight. The world outside was silent, and she was tucked away in her cozy bed. That's when she heard it. The sound of footsteps echoing through her house. A rhythmic thud, thud, thud that chilled her to the bone. She gathered her courage, got out of bed, and ventured into the darkened hallways, her heart pounding in her chest. Room after room, she searched, but found no one. The house was just as she had left it, but the footsteps continued, growing louder and more persistent. She returned to her room, the sound of the footsteps following her. The house was empty, of that she was certain, yet the footsteps persisted, a frightening reminder that she wasn't truly alone, but the footsteps were only the beginning of her nightmare. When the paranormal decides to make itself known, the results can be truly terrifying. Let's venture into the tale of a paranormal investigator who bit off more than he could chew. This gentleman, let's call him Robert, had been exploring the shadowy depths of a notoriously haunted location, a place where whispers of the past echoed through vacant halls. The investigation seemed routine, until Robert felt an icy chill run down his spine, a sensation he'd come to recognize as the brush of the supernatural. Unbeknownst to him, he was not alone. An entity, as elusive as a shadow, yet as palpable as the fear it instilled, had decided to accompany him home. His once peaceful abode turned into a stage for unexplained phenomena. Objects moving on their own, whispers in the dead of night, a constant feeling of being watched. The entity had followed him, claimed a piece of his world as its own. But the entity had more in store for him than he could ever have imagined. An antique tapestry, a chilling curse, and a family in terror. This tale begins innocuously enough with a family acquiring an old, intricately woven tapestry at an estate sale. They were captivated by its beauty, by the detailed scenes depicted in its threads. Little did they know, they were bringing home far more than just an artifact. The tapestry, as they soon discovered, was steeped in a chilling legend. It was said to be cursed, a conduit for dark forces. Whispers of its malign past began to circulate, tales of its previous owners meeting untimely and horrific ends. The family, initially brushing off these stories as nothing more than folk tales, soon found themselves living in a nightmare. Strange occurrences began to haunt their home. Unseen forces moved objects. Chilling whispers echoed in the dead of night, and the once vibrant tapestry seemed to take on a life of its own. But the real horror was what the curse brought with it. Guests are always welcome as long as they're from this realm. In the heart of a quaint little town nestled between the mountains and the sea, there sat a charming bed and breakfast. The host, a sweet lady with a heart as warm as her home-baked pies, was known for her hospitality. She had welcomed guests from all walks of life, but one winter night, she had a visitor unlike any other. The room was number 7, a cozy space adorned with antique furniture and floral wallpaper. The guest, a man in a black suit, arrived late at night carrying nothing but a worn-out suitcase. He was polite, yet there was something eerie about him. His eyes carried a distant look, as if he was from another time. He stayed for 3 nights and then, just as mysteriously as he had arrived, he was gone. The host went to clean the room, only to find it untouched. The bed was made, the towels were folded, and the suitcase was gone. It was as if he had never been there. But what happened next will send chills down your spine. Shadows are harmless, aren't they? Not in this story. In this tale, we meet an individual, a person who lived alone, embraced by the comfort of solitude. Their home, once a sanctuary, turned into a playground for the uncanny. They began to see shadows, not just ordinary ones, but eerie, unsettling figures that danced and darted around their dwelling. These weren't the friendly silhouettes of trees swaying in the moonlight, or the benign outline of furniture. No, these were shadows that seemed to have a life of their own. They moved with an intent, with a purpose that was as unclear as it was unsettling. Our protagonist watched, bewildered and terrified, as the shadows twisted and turned, morphing into shapes that defied logic and reason. They lurked in corners, slithered along walls, and seemed to whisper secrets in a language too ancient and forgotten for human ears. The person's home became a theater of the spectral, a stage for the phantasmal. But the shadows were not the only thing they had to fear. A game of Ouija turned into a terrifying encounter with the unknown. It started as a simple gathering, a group of friends seeking a thrill on an otherwise mundane evening. They brought out a Ouija board, a tool of divination, a bridge between the worlds of the living and the dead. With bated breath, they asked their first question. The planchette moved. It was exhilarating, terrifying, and addictive. As the night unfolded, the messages became increasingly sinister. The air grew thick with an unseen presence. The friends felt a chill creep up their spines, a fear that gripped them but also held them captive to the board. They were no longer in control. The board was. It was a night of sheer terror, a dance with the supernatural that they would never forget. The board, a vessel of unknown entities, had spoken. And what it had to say was not meant for the faint of heart. But the board had one final message that they will never forget.